I'm Tom Butcher of the Zero Project, and I'm here with David FAZIO of Helix Opportunity, and we're going to talk about globalizing digital accessibility through apprenticeship. I've got lots of questions that I'm going to fire at David. He's used to doing these things. So I'm going to fire away with our first one, which is, and I think it's probably one of the most important questions out, which is, how is apprenticeship different from internship?
It's a very important question, and it gets really misconstrued quite often. So with an internship, generally you'll bring in somebody in college or fresh out of college to kind of sort of get an idea or a feel for work or the workplace to see what it's like. Apprenticeship is very structured. You have a blueprint. You have classroom learning with a certain number of hours tied to it, and then you have on-job training that commences after that with a certain number of hours tied to it. And the on-job training is very structured. You have certain skill sets that you're going to learn, and you're going to learn under the tutelage of a subject matter expert, of a mentor. And usually it's a 1-to-3 ratio. 3 apprentices for every mentor, or it could be up to 5, basically. But the point is you get really, really intimate kind of sort of leadership and direction, which is very important for people with disabilities, because we fare better in environments where we get mentorship or we get one-on-one help. It helps us navigate the complexities of bureaucracy, of confidence issues, of needs for like reasonable accommodation, all these different kinds of things.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And I'm going to go on to our second question now, which is really, what do you see the global impact to be on disability inclusion, and also to the cost barrier to implementing digital accessibility?
You know, there's been a lot of improvements in terms of accessibility and inclusion around the world, but what hasn't improved is the employment rate of people with disabilities. It hovers around 20% for every country in the world, whether it's Mexico to the United States to the UK or anywhere in Europe. It's not really that great. Digital accessibility is the one career field where having a disability is actually a competitive advantage. And the reason that is because there's no way to know whether or not a product, environment, or service is truly accessible if people with disabilities don't have their hands on it, if they're not developing it or touching it or testing it, right? And the issue with digital accessibility in general, and why such few organizations have accessible websites and this and that, is because it's so freaking expensive. A lot of these companies charge anywhere from $450 an hour and up, which is basically the cost of legal representation, to have the stuff done. Well, with apprenticeship, you can have the same kind of work done in mass and at scale for a much lower cost, which lowers the cost barrier to entry for a lot of companies, and you're also giving a job opportunity to someone with a disability and letting them skill up in that career field as they go with a very structured and formalized program under the mentorship of an actual leader in the field anyway.
Right. As an adjunct to that, can I just ask, when vis-a-vis cost barriers, have you found there to be, in your field, cost inflation, or are prices actually coming down?
Absolutely not. And the reason, well, the reason is because there's very few people that know accessibility. The demand is high for the skill set, and the skill set is in low supply, right? And that's the biggest thing that we're talking about here, is a massive skilling up of the disability community all over the world to lower down the cost of what it takes to get your websites, your environments, your products accessible.
Great. I think that's very good news.
Yeah, well, you want to do things at scale,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
for half the time, you have people running automated website checkers, and you're just checking the false positives. So you don't need a law degree to do that.
No.
You don't need a degree in computer science either. You just need to understand the regulations and what the automated checker does.
Great. Thank you. And our third, I won't say set question, but the third one that I want to go on to before going on to some other ones is, are there enough employer partners in the world?
Absolutely not.
Well, that was going to be my next question, which is, if not, how do we get them?
Yeah, so, you know, are there enough potential employer partners in the world? Yes. So with apprenticeship, usually the way that it works is a company uses it for recruiting purposes, right? So you'll have like an IBM per se. They'll start an apprenticeship to bring in people to their company and to skill them up and have them advance through their career. What we've done is we've created a global apprenticeship where we're bringing in people with disabilities all over the world, training them up, and then staffing them out at other companies that do not work for us. We are the only accessibility apprenticeship in the world that does that. I know Atos has a digital accessibility apprenticeship for quite a while, but again, Atos does it to recruit Atos employees and this and that. We do it to get these employees and these skill sets all over the world in the companies that need them.
Yeah. So, but how do we get more of them?
Well, that's why we're having this fireside chat. We want
Right.
awareness. We want awareness out there in the world to let the potential employer partners know. And Europe is a big one. You know, Europe has a lot of disability laws that are coming into effect now and in the next couple of years. With the work that I do and traveling around Europe and this and that, I've come to find out that there isn't enough skill set in digital accessibility to adhere to these laws in many companies, and it's a big kind of sort of panic right now. Well, this apprenticeship is a good way to scale those efforts in mass for an affordable cost.
Right. Thank you. And there are some questions which have come out of those ones. Don't worry, they're not terribly difficult.
No worries, I don't worry.
But there are a couple of things which I think are really important for people to understand, which is, can you talk to us and to our audience online about the age of people who actually do the apprenticeships?
That's a good question also. You know, a lot of people think that apprenticeship means like an internship fresh out of college or in college, but it's not. Yes, there are some individuals that have just graduated and want to go into a career, so they look for an apprenticeship. But a lot of the time, it's people reskilling or retooling. They're changing careers. You know, we've got people in their 50s that, they were developers, 20, 30 years ago. They got, into some other job types. Now they want to get back into the field, those kinds of things. So it runs the gamut. It's all over. It could be veterans from, in the U.S. we've got those kinds of things.
But that's, I think, David, that's enormously encouraging, because when you have someone like me who's getting to the end of his official work life, that there might be a future out there. There might be other things that you can do and bring your experience with you to doing that job.
Yeah, and that's another thing about apprenticeships. There's a big misconception, or up until, the last maybe 10 years, apprenticeship has really been focused on unionized labor, on, painting, manual labor type positions. This is what's called a non-traditional apprenticeship, which doesn't have anything to do with physical labor. This is in IT, and that gives a big opportunity for people that have, kind of limitations for physicality in work and stuff like that, to retool their skills and to, enter into a new career.
Great. And as part of that, if you have a lot of young people, then a lot of young people are going to look for job development. Where can I go next? What might I do next? Can you tell us a little bit about the certification process so that essentially people's experience can be portable?
Absolutely. So we have a partnership that we have engaged with the International Association of Accessibility Professionals. So one of the things that we do is we offer a Certified Professional in Accessibility Core Competencies certification in our program. All of the apprentices become IAAP members through our organizational membership for the duration of their participation in the apprenticeship, so they have access to all of those resources. But also the United States Department of Labor certifies that every person that has gone through our apprenticeship program has done the curriculum, has adhered to the standards and the regulations and the guidelines. And this is a good thing because a lot of countries in the United Nations have apprenticeship structures in their government system. Even countries that don't have an apprenticeship structure, they can rely on the United States government's Department of Labor's basically quality assurance is what it is. Yeah. That this has been a very structured, standardized program. They've gone through it. It's almost like a degree type of situation. And that's the important thing about this portable certification. What it is it's quality assurance. It's saying that you've participated into a program that has been certified by the United States Department of Labor. It adheres to our standards, to our guidelines, and it's legitimate.
Great. Thank you very much indeed. And I'm going to go back a little bit in history now about Helix Opportunity. Could you tell us where you started this up and what are the main countries that you actually operate in, and how many different countries do you actually operate in?
So we do a lot in Latin America and the Caribbean. We've recruited and staffed people with disabilities in STEM positions in India, in the United Kingdom. We do work in Germany, I mean Japan, user research projects and stuff like this. But we started Helix Opportunity in San Francisco. So the very same government agencies that pay for the apprenticeship training for our program to train up apprentices all over the world paid for my organization to start up, right? It's called vocational rehabilitation. It is a system that is in every United Nations country around the world, and its whole reason for existing is to give people with disabilities the opportunity to get skills so that they can become employed and what's called economically self-sufficient, right? So that's kind of what started all of this and where we got our funding and how we started to operate.
Great. Thank you. And then two more, waiting for the camera to come round. Two more fact-based questions, which is, if you can think back, and if you know, the number is probably so large, how many apprenticeships have you facilitated?
It's a fairly new program, so we've done about 15 apprenticeships so far, and we just launched it last year. We just launched it last year. So we got the apprenticeship approved by the Department of Labor and all the certifications the year prior to that, and we started our first cohorts this last year. All right.
Great. And then I just have one more question before we're going to do our wrap-up. When the 3 comes up, then we do our wrap-up, which is, do you see this as an opportunity you're offering to small companies, large companies, or the whole spectrum in market capitalization?
Oh, it's the whole spectrum. You know, large companies usually have very small accessibility teams, which is another reason why we've created an accessibility developer apprenticeship program, not an accessibility tester program, right? So these individuals become stem cells. They can do anything related to technology, but whatever they do will guarantee that it's accessible, right? So the large companies need that, but the small companies especially need that because they can't afford, you know, to pay for a website development and then go pay $450 an hour to have that same website audited, right? So this allows them to be able to get one person into the door and to be able to do the work to develop their systems, applications, and make sure that they're accessible from the get-go. So this is available to everybody, but right now the major corporations are the ones that are participating.
Great.
The larger organizations.
Thank you so much. I see we've got 3 minutes, so I'm going to split up
Time
our
flies.
last 3. Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries.
I'm going to split up our last 3 minutes, which is, first is, what developments do you see on the horizon for what you're doing?
I think this is really going to take hold. There's a lot of mass exodus of companies in layoffs and this and that all over the world, especially tech companies. And I think what they're doing is they are resetting. They've spent way too much money on development and perks and this and that. They need lower cost labor and they need efficient labor. And this is kind of sort of a pipeline to plug that gap, right, where they can get the skilled labor for a much lower cost to meet their needs and to reset their balance sheets, right, so that it can be more affordable going forward and this and that. So I think this is something that's really important to tap into, and it's the right time, the right place, the right program.
Great stuff. And I have one final question, which is I always ask everybody here, which is, what do you want the listeners, the viewers, one thing to take away from our chat?
Become an employer partner. I want all the corporations, the HR and representatives to listen to this and to think, you know what, we could use developers, we could use people with disabilities, we need accessibility work done, we could use digital accessibility developer apprentices.
Great. David, thank you very much indeed for coming on to this fireside chat with a virtual fire. There's actually not even one of those...
is there? Oh, am I burning myself now?
There's not even one of those fireplaces with the kind of fake flames. But thank you so much. I wish you all the very best. What you're doing is incredibly valuable. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for listening. Have a great Zero Project.
Thank you.
Yay.